Welcome everyone to this talk about what Electron are doing in the UK with DSO flexibility market platforms. So today I'll be running through the learnings that we've made over the last few months in running those markets in the UK and have a look at where we're going next. So yeah, my name's Nick and I'm the Chief Product Officer at Electron. My background is in the energy sector. My background is in product management specifically. So it's about looking at the challenges that are being faced in energy and how we translate that into software that can solve those challenges. So solutions like building strategy and building tools in software that are actually going to solve real-world problems in energy. So yeah, I've got about 15 years experience doing that with highly technical, multi-stakeholder software systems. And basically, what we're doing at Electron is trying to build out a software package which faces those technical challenges, has a lot of different stakeholders of varying sizes, from big utilities right through to much more nimble, agile FSPs. In summary, what we're going to talk about over the next half an hour or so is what we're doing today in the UK. We'll have a look quickly at some of the currently live markets and market opportunities. And then we'll have a bit more of a laser focus on the Electron Connect platform, what it is and how it might be slightly different to some of the other offerings that are out there. And then we'll wrap up by looking at some of the exciting future use cases of flexibility, which we also often think about. You may or may not have had the pleasure of attending my talk last year at Flexcon. At that talk, I was talking about what we could do with a flexibility market platform, our intention and aims. And I'm happy to be able to report coming back this year that we have started to turn the map blue, in that we have deployed our software, we do have live customers, we do have live markets. So this is just showing the main areas of the UK. We're working with DNO, DSOs, at distribution level, that is. So these are the license areas, and the blue ones, bright blue there, are where we are working with those organizations. Logos on the board, nice. We have some good quotes to the right there in terms of the value that our customers are seeing in working with us. So always thinking about this partnership angle. We're not coming along and saying, this widget's better than your old widget. What we're saying is that we're developing the next generation in flexibility markets. And it's happy days because our customers, the DNO, DSOs, are also on a journey to go to the next level of their processes and how they run flexibility. So it's an ideal partnership in that we can say, your ideas are changing, your process is changing. We're developing software which will support those new processes. And together we can be a good, powerful team in order to actually take that next step in flexibility market platforms. So yeah, so fun times. There's also, we'll kind of, as a theme that weaves through, is we never forget our roots, as it were, in the innovation space. Electron have come from a space where we were being quite innovative around the use cases for flexibility, near real-time trading, many-to-many markets. And that's not something we'll ever move away from. And the reason for that is because there's a lot to be learned from testing those new possibilities with flexibility. There's a lot of information, knowledge, insight that we get from working through those projects. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the presentation. But suffice to say that, yes, business as usual, flexibility market platforms, working with DSOs, utilities, etc., is our main drive now. Take that to the next level. But we're always going to be thinking about how else can we use flexibility? What other problems can we solve? So in a nutshell, in the UK today, for Electricity Northwest, in the northwest of this slide, we are deploying a complete end-to-end platform. So that means all the way from contracting your FSP to onboarding them, registering assets, bids and offers, market matching, dispatch, performance verification, data that flows out of it. So it's like the whole 9 yards in terms of when you think about a flexibility market platform, what are those functional buckets that we'll see in a minute in the functional architecture. So within WL, Electricity Northwest, we're looking at deploying that whole thing for them. That's slightly different, let's say, to Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks, SSEN, on the top right there, in that they're taking a much more modular approach in that they already have existing software systems that they enjoy using for dispatch and settlement. And we're saying, well, actually, we can come along with the onboarding, contracting, markets, and we can integrate with those existing systems. And it's a very important point because we're not saying, we'll do everything, everyone, let's go. We're saying that we can take our platform in a modular sense and we can put it alongside your existing systems. And there's no reason you would replace the system if there's no reason to. So we're saying, if that's the best thing for you, happy days, use it. We can stay alongside it. We can integrate with it. And that's exactly what we're doing with SSCN. On the bottom row, a couple of interesting things. I'll start bottom right with National Grid Electricity Distribution, or National Grid DSO. What we're doing there is we're looking at a slightly different concept because that system operator has a slightly different concept in general in that they have their own, what they call market gateway. The market gateway basically is a portal for flexibility to come to the National Grid markets from whatever source they want. So basically the gateway links up to existing flex platforms or registration portals. So it's like a middleware in a way. And you can say, I register on Electron Connect, but I arrive at the gateway. I register on another market platform, I arrive at the gateway. So what we're doing is we're integrating our platform with their gateway. People can register, FSPs can register their flexibility. They can make bids on our platform, and we send it to the gateway. So again, another interesting way forward in that the NGED, National Grid Electricity Distribution way forward or thought is to say, well, actually, we don't mind where the flex comes from. It's more about how do we make routes to market for that flexibility. And bottom left, the Buy Trader Innovation Project is about how we can use a flexibility for another use case, that being how we optimize curtailment in the UK. So curtailment happens when the grid is congested or under constraint at certain locations and times. And basically the network itself or the network systems are saying, we're going to start turning people off because the grid's constrained. And that depends on those people being on what's called flexible contracts, as in the contract says you might be turned off if the grid is constrained. And that's one way of activating flex, of course, very top down. Network says no, you get cut off. It's not a very good way to use renewable energy. It's also typically based on what's called a last in, first out, as in the oldest asset never gets chopped off because it was there first. And that doesn't make sense because new assets are more efficient, typically. This is super interesting because we're saying we can use flexibility to make that, or optimize it. So we don't just do it last in, first out. We use the market to trade and say, oh, I would like to trade out of curtailment. I don't want to get cut off. But if I have a different business model, I might say, yes, pay me to be curtailed. It makes sense. And to do that, we need to link up to that network system. So there's a big piece there about systems integration and how we join up network systems with markets. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So very quickly, just to give you a flavor of what we're doing today. So Electricity Northwest, there are around 100 markets across 30 what's called CMZ, Constraint Management Zone in the UK. Basically means what part of the network is constrained coming up. So plenty of different opportunities, both in urban areas, in Manchester, but also very rural areas too. Different budgets, all published through the portal. So basically, when you log into Electron Connect, you can see where the flexibility is required, what days of the week, what hours of the day, the budgets, the estimated amount of activation, like how much energy will be utilized, predicted. And the same is true Scottish and Southern. So obviously, that DNO license area being in two discrete non-contiguous areas, where you've got the south of England, southern Hampshire area, where you have around 50 markets across 16 of those network locations, but also very much in the rural area of the Highlands, the other part of the network, in that there are less CMZs, less congestion predicted over the next period, and 8 markets, but equally, opportunities across both of those areas to get involved, to provide flexibility, to get paid for being flexible. So yeah, so the kind of a whistle stop of what we're doing, but what actually falls out of that, typically, well, actually coming out of what I was just talking about, let's imagine SSCN. You have quite, what's the word? Quite a lot of low carbon technologies, DERs deployed in the south, typically, you could probably say that. So there's more electric cars, more heat pumps, In the Highlands, maybe less so, less flexibility around. So we need to think about this. And the way I think about it, at least, is like the sandwich. On the top level, you've got the flexibility that you want to engage. On the bottom level, you've got the system operator who has a problem to solve. And we sit in the middle, actually. We, as a flexibility market platform, market design, actually, so how we procure that flexibility, starts to bring these two things together. So starting at the top with the FSPs, flexibility service providers, it's a catch-all term which includes things like EV charging, variable loads, so stuff that's really volatile and unpredictable. It's stuff like intermittent generation, like onshore wind and solar. It's stuff like grid-scale batteries, of course, big shipping containers with batteries in. And it's also things which have been providing flex for a long time, industrial and commercial. So supermarket fridges have been providing flex for a long time, car plants, etc. All of these things have different, as I've called it, business and technology needs, which is a bit of a interesting phrase. But basically what I'm trying to say is that each of those businesses has particular needs. How do I run my business? I can't turn the fridges off if I'm Sainsbury's forever. I can't tell people to stop charging. They also have technology needs, like what can you actually do? How quickly can you respond, etc. So that's the people we're trying to engage with Flex. And actually going forwards, as we all know, low voltage LV Flex is going to be the biggest pool of flexibility going forward, or one big pool that we need to engage with. Lots of people installing charge points, heat pumps, etc. So variable loads, they fall under that bucket. They're very variable. It's not something that's easy to predict 6 months ahead. On the buyer side, typically the buyer, the utility system operator, typically today or in the past with Flex, they're looking at congestion management, as in I have an upcoming constraint forecast. I need to ask people to turn down, typically, actually. They also do increasingly things like peak and seasonal management of the grid, especially as they move from network operators into network operators plus system operators. They're actually looking at balancing. And there's also other things like fault management, so making sure that you have people on standby, you've paid them to be ready, so trees falling on the line, whatever. I need to activate some people really quickly to solve that problem, so you're reserving them, so that's another use case. And then an interesting use case, but it does go there. So when we talked about curtailment before, as in the system is going to cut people off because the network's under constraint, if that's not being done in the best way, it causes the network operator a problem because they need to be using that clean energy. They need to be curtailing people in a smarter way than they would necessarily be doing by just doing a last in, first out. So smarter curtailment is definitely a need for a system operator. How do I make that a better thing? Like active network management, as it's called, the network system that can curtail generation typically, but also large demand. That's a valid top-down way to access Flex. All good, not saying it's bad, but we need to link it up to markets to make sure that it's being done in the most holistic, kind of best way. And we'll talk about that again when we get to the buy trader specifics. So anyway, in the middle there, what we're trying to do is bring those two together. We need to solve the system needs, but we also need to engage the different cohorts of flexibility. And a lot of that goes around what we run on the platform. So if anyone asks me, like, what's the USP of Electron Connect, one of the ones that first comes to the top of my head is the fact that we can run these different market constructs as proper markets on the platform, and they coordinate between each other. So they might be long-term auctions, which are reserving capacity every Tuesday morning for 6 months. And that would help with fault management, and it'd also be quite useful for INC, maybe, who wants to see that stable price signal. We can also run nearer real-time, like day-ahead markets that maybe are only paying on delivered energy, so like a utilization-only payment, and that's attractive to variable loads. And it also helps with evening peak management for the system operator. So you can start to see how you map these things across. And the way you do that is by running multi-markets on a platform, not doing separate programs through spreadsheets where it's impossible to see who's doing what. So market design becomes that glue that links the two between. So this is a kind of functional architecture, for want of a better term. But basically, it's just really illustrating or attempting to illustrate what our platform actually does. And it does come to that idea of modularity in that we don't have to deploy the whole thing for everyone. We can say, where we're going to bring value and we can integrate with existing systems. So on the left, data feed upstream services. It's basically, it is the data coming into the platform. So it's things like FSPs, who are they? Have they got a contract? What assets are they registering? Where are they? What can they do? What are they bidding into the market? Like what capacity? How much will it cost to activate or to be reserved? In the middle is where we like to focus, like I was just talking about, in terms of the markets, multi-markets running with different market design, coordination between them. So you know that asset A could be in 4 markets if they overlap in space. But they can typically only be used in one of those at a certain time. And then downstream of that, it's obviously supporting the settlement process in that, yeah, we're going to dispatch people. We're going to measure their performance by looking at a baseline and the metadata to see what was actually delivered. We can generate invoices based on that data. That's good for the FSP. But there's also a whole load of other data which comes out of the fact that it's running on a software platform. It's not locked up in someone's spreadsheet somewhere. It's all running through the platform. So we can know, if you're an FSP, where do I get reserved? When do I get paid to be available? When do I get activated? Do I ever get activated in a certain area? Yes or no? Could be that you'd never get activated. How much do I get paid? How successful am I? You can, as a system operator, see how much engagement you get given a certain market design. So you can say, I've deployed different market designs. It could even be something as detailed or esoteric as like the clearing mechanism. Does that raise my liquidity levels or does it suppress them? And I can see the data flowing out the platform to support my market design decisions. So that's, yeah, where things get quite interesting as we start getting data out of the back end of the platform. And yeah, it's just some screenshots of the kit. So signposting things, different ways of signposting, depending on the market design again. The actual market itself, so running as a market, this is just showing the merit order being created. So basically saying in a given time and service windows, like days of the week, hours of the day, who's available, who's the cheapest, who's the most expensive, which technology types are involved. And basically just rather than someone having to look manually and go, yes, no, this is basically codifying a lot of that knowledge and work. So Nick might have built up a lot of experience working over the last few years with spreadsheets, but if Nick's on holiday, no one knows what to do. Whereas if we're baking that into the platform, then the team can pick it up and they can say, well, the knowledge is in the platform, right? So building the merit orders there, we don't have to go to a spreadsheet to do it. And then coming out, we've got the dispatch, of course, the performance verification, where we establish a baseline for each asset over the time period. And that's something basically that we look to existing baselining technologies on. It's a big topic, obviously, but not one that we are suggesting that we are like world leading on. But having said that, we can take a third-party baseline if needed. I mean, you need a baseline to be able to verify what was delivered. So it's your prediction of an asset would have looked like this for the next period. And then when you look at what they did do after you asked them to say turn down, then you can work out, well, actually, how much did you turn down? And you need to do that so we can work out how much they should get paid. And then, yeah, on the end, there's the kind of trading insights, data insights, which ultimately is looking to promote this idea that flexibility should be traded more as a commodity. So rather than like something where it's unknown how much was paid or who delivered or what happened, it's more like, no, it's very clear that this is the cost of flexibility by time and space or even technology type. So yeah, coming towards the end of this talk, it's definitely worth digging a little deeper on some of these innovation projects. And again, a lot of benefit for us as a company, but also I think the flexibility space in general from innovation, because it's about saying, what else could we improve using Flex? What other use cases can we hit? So buy trader, as I say, is all about curtailment obligations trading, a very technical term or quite dry maybe. But what it means is, yeah, you're in an area where you've got active network management, so you're connected to a system which can curtail you, which means turn you off to a certain amount. You're on a contract which allows that to happen, and that's good because it means you got connected to the network quicker. So there's a benefit to active network management. There's a benefit to curtailment because people can connect quicker. So typically they'll say, you can wait for a firm connection. You'll never get curtailed, but it will take you a lot longer to get it. So you have to sit around waiting to connect your asset. or you can accept a non-firm connection. You get connected a lot quicker, but you might get curtailed, which is bad. So it's one of those trade-offs. We're basically saying, yeah, that's all well and good, but we could improve that process by saying every network location, there's a list of these assets behind it. And if a constraint starts to bite, then they'll be curtailed in order. So off the top, getting curtailed until we resolve that congestion for that time. So it's forecasted, like day ahead, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get curtailed sometimes. Last in, first out, which isn't great, as we talked about before. So what we're doing is we're saying, how do we improve that by enabling people to trade up and down that merit order list, as they call it. And the aims, as put on the slide there, are basically saying, how do we make flexible connections more palatable? Number one, people get connected quicker, but there's some agency, as in they have control over that curtailment process. How do we make sure that we can get that flexibility into the system? Like, yes, fine, you're on a non-firm connection, but could you participate in markets as well? Like provide flex at different times? And basically, as it says there, the outcomes listed out fairly straightforward in terms of the top level aims. But yeah, if we go to the next slide, a bit more detail. But effectively, what we're doing is we're taking the merit order list. So non-traded means it comes from the network system. This is the order of things. It's last in, first out. They're on non-firm connections. Some of them might be on firm connections sat in the middle of the list as well, makes it more complicated. So typically, generators can be large demands. We take that list of assets into the trading platform. People are made aware of their situation day ahead, and then they can put bids and offers in, like to say, I want to move up and down that merit order. So the trading happens on the platform, and we push it back to the DNO system, as in this is the new order of curtailment. So that's good, and it attempts to hit all those benefits we just looked at in our last slide. But it also lets us explore things like connecting network systems to the platform, because the network system is forecasting the constraint. The market is trying to avoid constraints through trading. So bringing the network data into the market makes a lot of sense to have this holistic, joined up approach to the trading. So yeah, it's basically what we're doing now is running through the simulation trials, building out the kind of software to prove that it'll work, like to say, yes, we can receive network data. Yes, we can publish that to FSPs day ahead. Yes, we can allow them to trade, and we can push it back to the network system. So that's ongoing, and we're moving into the simulation trial period towards the end of this year. So yeah, as I say, one example, but very important that we don't forget about innovation, and it should sit in parallel to commercial deployments of flex market platforms, because there's a lot of learnings for everyone that comes out of these innovation projects. So yeah, in conclusion, in the UK, we're seeing that increasing proliferation of different use cases for system operators. So yeah, we still are always going to have those long-term auctions to reserve capacity for fault situations, post-fault. We're going to have that for network planning. Like, I want to upgrade my transformer. It takes 5 years. I need to lock people in to make sure they're going to be available for me as I do that. But we also are seeing a lot more nearer real-time trading of flex. So for example, in London and South East, UK Power Networks have launched their day-ahead trading market, which basically means that people can say what they can do day ahead. They get paid for the energy they deliver. That's attractive for aggregators, variable load. So we're starting to see a much wider set of markets being deployed, hitting different use cases. And for us as Electron, we definitely see that the market design, getting that right, is going to be the first, one of the biggest unlockers for that. Definitely 100% lower barriers to entry, obviously, make the UIs easy, make API access. Talk about standards too. Standards kind of out of our control, but they can help with that. They can also hinder it. But the big thing that we can do is we can think about the best market design to make the markets attractive to FSPs, to flexibility, but also make it such that they solve different use cases. So it's all about market design, I guess is what I'm saying. There's a thing here around modularity, which we touched on, and that ecosystem approach. So like I touched on earlier, we don't necessarily want to say have the end-to-end platform, off you go. We're saying that we can add value in a modular way by linking to existing systems, and that actually the way forward in the flexibility space is that legitimately people have registration portals or settlement platforms, and they've been built for a purpose and they're fit for purpose. We don't necessarily need to sweep them away, and we can sit alongside them. And it should be the way forward, is to sit alongside those existing systems. So that ecosystem approach. And always remembering that innovation should always be back of our mind, that can we think of other ways to solve problems using Flex, and can we take learnings from that and build it into BAU, business as usual processes. But otherwise, that's it. Everyone loves a QR code or two, and those are the trading opportunities currently live. So if you have assets or resources, flexibility in those regions we looked at, then feel free to follow the link and register. But otherwise, that's it. So thank you for listening.